There you go. There
Okay,
you
we're not
go.
going.
We're alive now.
Now we're live.
Well,
Oh my goodness. Well,
Kitty.
once again, you have tuned in. You've been hearing us, but you may have not been able to see us.
Yes.
But it's okay. You have tuned in to Believe Radio, which is a 24-hour and inspirational and gospel music station. The Eyes of the Conscience Soul with Sister B Mellow brings to you every first Saturday of the month the Cafe Le Blue Lounge, which we have the first corner is the artist talk. Second corner is Why I Dream. Third corner is She Who Believes Take Off the Mask. The Every second Saturday of the month, we have the Medicine Hour with my co host, Mr. George Pearson. Every third Saturday, we have Education is the Best Medicine. And today, you have tuned in to the Kitchen Table, which is the Community Voices. As we said earlier, you may have been able to hear us, but not sure if you were able to see us. But now we are here broadcasting live in the studio at Believe Radio, which is a 24-hour inspirational and gospel music station. Tonight into this afternoon, we are highlighting and uplifting African American women. And we have the thing for today is Black woman. You have the birth of humanity in your DNA. So you can definitely do the research of a ancestor that's called Lucy, which is a 3.2 million year old fossil skeleton of our African American ancestor. Again, you have tuned in to the Kitchen Table Community Voices, where we discuss hot topics that will keep you on your toes. Today, Mr. Pearson is highlighting our African American judge. What is her name, Mr. Pearson?
K. Brown. Dr. K.
K.
Brown.
Dr. K. Brown. But however, Mr. Pearson has given us a base of the conversation that we're stemming from is the 1619 project and some other viable information that we would need. He is a physician assistant clinician that does this type of work all day long.
Yeah.
For how many years you've been doing this work? Once again,
now.
Ooh, 35 years of while serving our community. We just want to continue to uplift you today. As we were saying, this is about uplifting and highlighting the African American Black woman. We know that you are special to us today and every day of our lives. We talked about trauma and how our everyday experiences can stem to the things that we are going through in our lives today. We want you to definitely make sure that you do self-care. We on the kitchen table will continue to bring community leaders, organizers that's going to share what they're doing in the community today. That's why we have Mr. George Pearson in the studios with us. And again, you are tuned into Believe Radio, which is a 24-hour inspirational and gospel music station, and which is featuring the Eyes of the Conscience Soul Radio show. There it again. Take it over, Mr. Pearson. And thank you.
So it got me thinking about, trauma and, how do you really define trauma? And trauma is defined as a deeply distressing and disturbing experience, a personal trauma like the death of a child. And this is the definition. Emotional shock following a stressful event or a physical injury, which may be associated with a physical shock and something that leads to long-term mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
So
taking care of our mental health is important,
key.
Just as well as we
key.
Take care of our bodies. Mental health is the key for us, making sure that we are having
but like all things,
healthy lifestyle.
But like all things, we have a little bit more of a issue. And I would not say just that we have not just trauma,
mm-hmm.
but intergenerational trauma. And what do I mean by that? The intergenerational trauma says that somewhere along your family line, something happened, a traumatic experience. And throughout generations of that traumatic experience, if not dealt with, if not understood, if not validated, it almost literally changes the DNA of that family.
Mm.
And that trauma becomes a part of their DNA and of their ethos, thereby being translated from mother to child to family member to throughout generations. And that's what's unique about this discussion. Now, we have not just had trauma, we've had intergenerational trauma. And that now is being realized. It's happened to a number of folks. And what I found about reviewing the literature now that I think about it is that we had discussions around Native Americans, we had discussions around Irish, we had discussions around um, Native American, Irish. Those are the two that stick out in my mind, but there was a third group. And the discussions around the acceptance of the concept that you could have trauma that extends through your family line. Well, it shouldn't be, because that's how we learned how to protect ourselves. And so if a mother feared something for her child, that is the fear that would be instilled in the child, because the child wants to survive like the mom wants to survive. And somehow it never got turned off in us, or
Mm.
again, the trauma of slavery was never validated in society. The trauma of slavery was never acknowledged as something that was not a good thing. It was a good thing for one group, but very, very bad for the other.
So we are today again highlighting the Black woman, and we're saying to you that we love and appreciate your resilience, your love, your patience, and your guidance. And as Mr. Pearson said just a second ago, is that we are trying to make sure that we take care of ourselves, because, as he says, if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of
Anyone else?
anyone
Yeah.
else. So today we are definitely highlighting the African American Black woman, and it is our thing for today. Black woman, you have the birth of humanity in your DNA. Go ahead, Mr. Pearson.
And I guess that when we talk about intergenerational
Generational.
trauma as a manifestation of how does it present in us? It presents anger, it presents as irritability, it presents as nightmares, it presents as fears, it presents as conflict between family members.
Mm-hmm.
It presents as substance abuse, particularly alcohol and drugs. And that, and again, not just what we're doing, but what happened to us for it to become a part of our day-to-day lives.
And as they are tuned into the kitchen table, this is what we also are saying in our families. Let's get back to having dinner with each other and talk about our daily lives and talk about the issues and our concerns and our fears, because at the kitchen table is when we put it all out there, just as well as we had that beautiful gourmet of food. It's called soul food. We were able to share our souls with our family members. So we're asking everyone and inspiring and encouraging everyone to definitely let's go back. Let's go back to bringing the family together and having hot topic conversations around the table. Go ahead, Mr.
Well,
Pearson.
that's what it says too, and as you go, hey, you can do this, research this stuff, look it
Mm-hmm,
up,
mm-hmm.
see, because,
Oh, we have the cell phone. So what you could do with
yeah.
your family at the table, how about come up with a conversation or topic? And as you go through, you're teaching your child how to do research. How do we do a family project? Coming up with different things and learning about our family and our triggers, and how do we then educate ourselves? As you say, education is the best medicine. How do we? This is what we're trying to do, is bring to our community. Let's get back to the way we've done things. We've deviated and did things like other folks, but And it's crazy because they're now doing things like we normally do.
Right.
But how do we get back to the kitchen table? How do we get back to the hard conversations? How do we get back into empowering someone else? And we may have to experience the trauma, but we can work through it together. Go ahead, sir.
Well, and so I just want to kind of, again, we clarify definition around trauma, and want
Absolutely.
to clarify definitions around transgenerational trauma and intergenerational trauma. And I think that uh, it's defined as the psychological effects that the collective trauma experienced by a group of people has on has the effect on subsequent generations in that group. Collective trauma is the effect of psychological trauma experienced by communities and identified groups and carries a part of the group's collective memory and shared sense of identity. That again, that's the imprint in your DNA.
Mhm.
For example, the collective trauma experienced by the Jewish Holocaust survivors, and which was one of those groups really well studied. And what I was saying about it is that uh, Jewish, Native American, and Irish, those were the three groups. And but when it came to us, the information was kind of lacking. Almost we were like a general issue,
Mm.
and that's the kind of thing that kind of bothered me. When you look at people, go to YouTube and those kind of things, some of the folks that were speaking about this early, Dr. Mile, I think his name was, early in discussion around, and again, using the Native American example of trauma, intergenerational trauma, as well as the Jewish Holocaust victims. And again, not even in the ball game, not even as a discussion on the intellectual circus. That's why it's been brought to the table now because, it has to be.
And I'm glad that you had made mention of the Holocaust because we have a artist, a author that we're going to bring into the studio, and his name is Mr. Dante King, and he has written a book that's called 400 Years of the Holocaust for the African American People. So we would definitely have him at the kitchen table sharing information about that. Again, we want to thank you for tuning in to Believe Radio, which is a 24-hour inspirational and gospel music station. You have again tuned into the Eyes of the Conscience Soul with Sister B Mello and my co-host, Mr. George Pearson, founder and producer of Education is the Best Medicine. We are here today at the kitchen table sharing with individuals how do we as a race, how do we as a people take care of ourselves, just as we highlight and uplift African American women because they go through a different stressor every day of their lives, just as well as other ethnicities. So we are highlighting her today, but definitely sharing around the kitchen table the importance of self-care and how do we as African Americans get the information that we need to better ourselves and learn more about our generational traumas and how do we move through them and how do we help our families. Go ahead.
Well, Joe Williams from Indigenous X says to heal, we must untangle the coping mechanism learned from generations of trauma, and that's where substance use disorder comes in. That's where bad eating comes in. That's where stressing comes in. That's where trauma comes in.
Mhm.
So we've learned. I like people to think that the way we've had to adapt to trauma is our coping mechanisms for dealing with that stressor to humanize it to us so we can move forward.
Mhm.
And it's just that our coping mechanisms have always been pretty negative and also, anti health, bad food, alcohol, tobacco, not resting enough, not trying to exercise and take care of oneself because that's the learned behavior when you think you're going to die tomorrow.
So what you're trying to do is encourage us to start now.
Yeah.
If we haven't started, you were saying something about to do one step at a time. You were saying start from walking to running or
Well,
from.
no one, we have to think that in our development we've been kind of childlike, and
Mm.
with that, you have to slowly develop. And remember, it's a teaching process.
Mhm.
You learn, you make mistakes, you learn, you make mistakes. You
Just as
can't
well as
go
us with this new um
system.
show and
Oh
new
yeah,
system.
yeah.
Things happen, and that's one thing we want you to understand. And we say we are transparent. Things happen in life. How do we get through them. How do we get better? And this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful again to be having this conversation on the kitchen at the kitchen table. This is where we talk about the hard issues, the traumas, the different things that we're going through. Go ahead, Mr. Pearson.
So I think that,
And systems. Ooh, let's not go with systems. Go, but
yeah,
go ahead.
I think that, again, we're really glad to be on Believe Radio, and the
Yes.
conversations, I think, are to be from a different perspective that lends you to just think about it, educate
Food
yourself,
for
and make
thought.
change, and
We're
make
just bringing food for thought.
make changes.
Absolutely.
And so I think that
Consider this.
exactly, consider the alternative.
Consider.
In any kind of decision, you have to consider the alternatives.
Absolutely.
And when you talk to people when they made snap decisions or they didn't consider alternatives, the first thing they say is, well, particularly if you're in front of a judge, well, I didn't think about it that way. And so, and we were also talking that, and it got us to discussions around violence, and we were always we were talking about that because women's health. Again, I have a particular axe to grind about guns now. It is an issue for me, and want to kind of understand that a lot of the deaths of Black women by guns are really preventable. First of all, you don't have a gun in the house. Secondly, one of the major proponents of men shooting women is an argument.
And it's
So
not that serious. We want to get
nothing's that
folks to
serious.
nothing's that serious.
Nothing can be that
You said
serious.
stop, and then we
Take
do what?
Stop, take a deep breath,
Okay.
and you have to take an overview of the situation. You have to
And
say,
again, the consequences.
and well, yeah, and if you start in that kind of mode, again, this gets back to trauma.
Practice. Yeah,
But this gets back to trauma.
Absolutely.
I want to be in control. You're gonna do what I tell you to do. If you don't do what I tell you to do, then all the thoughts of like almost like an explantation owner or a slave master,
Different perspective
about control, and so I can see the angst because women of color basically are making more money, gaining more degrees, putting on radio programs and, different arena, different call. And the thing about the murder of Black women with guns is that it's always by somebody they knew. And again, and the men didn't have any other charges. They weren't they weren't doing crime. This was I don't call it a crime of passion, because if it's passion, you don't want to kill the person you love or that
especially
you like.
if you love them.
Yeah, or you got your kids.
I don't want you to love me that much that you
Yeah,
kill me.
right. Well, that's not love.
and fighting.
Yeah,
So
that's not love.
then again, Black woman, we want to make sure that you are encouraged to be in a state of mind to take care of yourself and your partner. We want them to definitely spiritually, physically, mentally love you.
I think too that the problem with this is it's an escalation from the foundation of poverty to domestic violence to murder. So it's a three-edged sword, and you gotta. And so I'm calling on women, if they're in this situation, they have to tell somebody.
Yeah.
You can't. This cannot be a secret. And but the thing about that, in the past, when women have revealed, it's almost like going back to their accuser.
Yeah.
Because
and the experience.
Well, and family and
Yeah.
folks that want to keep this a secret would tell them to go back to this abuser.
Right.
So that has to change, and I think that I'm saying this because I don't want anyone to lose their grandchild. And again, the murder rate for Black women is 3 times higher than for white women. And again, most often in an argument. And again, I will always say that the killer of my grandchild was only 16 years old.
Jesus. And to shift gears, you were saying about our health.
Right.
So you were saying that Black women have more heart disease
Well,
than
so again, back to trauma.
back to trauma.
It's always
Okay.
trauma,
Mm,
intergenerational trauma,
absolutely.
soul food.
So, we the eyes of the conscious soul, but we want you to look within.
Soul
We
food.
so we go.
So
So there's a different form of way that we're gonna have to like encourage people to cook soul food
right,
now.
right. I
So
understand that Wendy's
we can,
Cheesecake Bakery is gonna come out with a organic,
and we,
low vegan
we
piece. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I'm hearing. Or if you look at the opposite way, it's the one thing you do for your pleasure, for
Mm.
for that taste thing.
So again, what would you say the portions of our food you always tell us
Well, it should
about?
be plant based, of course.
Okay.
And what I mean by plant based is that it's the colors of the rainbow. We have really good experience and discussions that we were a plant based people, probably first of all,
Mhm.
and we were a plant based people because it took it more advanced in group thinking to kill an animal.
Mhm.
And then animal husbandry doesn't happen until, I guess, year 8,000, and it's done specifically by in the Asian part of the world, and that's where they start to capture animals and raise them for whatever, uh, for meat. And the discussion has to change.
Well,
Yeah.
again, we want to thank you for tuning in to Believe Radio, which is a 24-hour inspirational and gospel music station. The Eyes of the Conscious Soul brings to you every first Saturday of the month from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. called the Cafe Le Bleu Lounge, where there are three corners: Artist Talk, Why I Dream, She Who Believes Takes Off the Mask. And then on the second Saturday of the month, we have the Medicine Hour with my co host, Mr. George Pearson. We talk about issues and concerns that's happening in the African American community. And definitely, we want to make sure that you know that we believe taking care of our temple, mind, and spirit is essential to having a mental wellness, healthy eating habits, and knowing that a healthy way of thinking leads to a healthy way of living. Every third Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on the Eyes of the Conscious Soul, we have Education is the Best Medicine founder and producer, Mr. George Pearson. And then on the fourth Saturday of the month from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., we have the Kitchen Table, which you are tuned in to now. This is where we have real hot topics conversations about what should we be doing in our community and in our families to better ourselves. We bring in individuals, organizers, community leaders, business owners to highlight the different things that they're doing in our communities. But again, we are transparent and we are here to inspire you, to encourage you, but for you to definitely have the talk at your kitchen table. How do we get back to encouraging our families? And we are here highlighting African American women.
And so we always try to do solutions, right? So
Of course,
one of the
always,
things we talked
always,
about
always.
was and we'll continue. I said, ask yourself and start with small goals first and progress, i.e., walking before you can run.
Mm. Hey,
You
that's a part of life.
yeah, of course. Take time for yourself and take care. You can't take care of yourself. You can't take care of anyone else.
You mean I can't eat 15 donuts?
You could, but that might be an issue.
Well, a whole lot of places is gonna be
Yeah.
an issue.
And here's the discussion: are you really hungry? Or are you hungry? There's a difference, right?
and
Hungry versus hungry.
and you
Yeah.
made you made me think yesterday when you were saying when we eat we supposed to eat for energy because we need the energy to do something, not the energy to lay down. Go
Well,
ahead.
and again, back to the trauma, how we use food in the community,
Mhm.
how we use exercise or lack of exercise in the community. What are our priorities? Food choices need to be more plant based versus meat based. We're trying to achieve normal blood pressure, normal blood sugar, and normal weight. And we'll talk more about that because the data has changed. When you asked me which blood pressure was, the numbers have changed again. So we're going to do a refresh.
Black woman, we want you to be healthy.
More water, less sugar and caffeine-based products. Although the discussions around caffeine are different. Maybe 3 to 4 cups, but it's black, not a milkshake. Not a caffeinated milkshake.
You mean I can't put like 15 cups of
sugar
the
and cream and all.
cubes of
Oh
sugar.
man, I tell you, that's dangerous though. So we talked about stop. It's understand family history and medical conditions could be a part of your genetics, and that's definitely around hypertension, heart disease issues, uh, alcohol and tobacco. There's plenty of websites, and you just can review and discusses substance use disorders and those kinds of things.
Wow, Mr. Pearson, time flies when we having fun. Boy, we have 8 minutes left. But it's a good thing to know that we've been having a real kitchen talk conversation going down in here at Believe Radio, and we're grateful again to have this opportunity. Go ahead, Mr.
The
Pearson.
discussions around heart disease, still, when you ask women, black women, what's the number one killer, they think it's breast cancer, but really it's heart disease. Cardiovascular disease, number one killer of African American women. The Go Red campaign is the American Heart Association, and some of this data is taken from that discussion around heart disease in African American women. Most heart disease as a family is asymptomatic, which means you don't have chest pain, but you could have nausea and neck pain and just feel tired. Heart disease kills about 50,000 sisters, grandmothers, aunts, partners, nieces, daughters, and of women aged greater than 20, 49% have heart disease. Only 58% are aware of the signs of heart disease, chest pain, nausea, those kinds of things. Because women present differently than men in terms of heart attacks and strokes. One in five, only 1 in 5 believe they're at risk. 36% of African women knew that heart disease. Only 36% of African American knew they had heart disease was a risk. That means 75%. A little less than 75% don't know that heart disease is number one killer for them. Wow. It's telling statistics. Learn CPR, exercise, understand, you can change this process. Take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else.
Absolutely. Well,
thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. Well, we are partners in not crime, but in good crime.
No doubt, Diggy.
So we want to say thank you again for continue to tune in to Believe Radio, which is a 24 hours inspirational and gospel music station. Please tune into that every first Saturday of the month from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. We have the Eyes of the Conscience Soul bringing to you the Cafe Le Bleu Lounge, where there are 15 to 45-minute segments called The Corner. The first corner is the Artist Talk. The second corner, Why I Dream. The third corner, She Who Believes, Take Off the Mask. On the second Saturday of the month, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., we have the Medicine Hour, which myself and Mr. George Pearson. This is where we believe building a better tomorrow starts with us. Topics we cover is health issues and concerns, healthy eating habits, education, financing, and politics in the African American community. And then the third Saturday of the month, we have the Education is the Best Medicine with Mr. George Pearson. And today we have the fourth Saturday of the month from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., the kitchen table, where we have community leaders, organizations, and business owners come in and talk about the different things that they're doing in their community, but definitely bringing hot topic conversations to the table. We have been here at the studio starting at 2 p.m., but on the live of the Facebook, it's going to be ending in a minute because we were having conversations. We started at 3. I'm not quite sure if we can continue to go on, but again, we want to thank you for tuning in. Go ahead, Mr. Pearson.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please support us. And we need eyeballs and earballs on Believe Radio. I think it's a really great inspirational and gospel music issue. And we're going to have real talk. And so hopefully the journey that you take with the Eyes of the Conscious Soul um, will allow us to expand our horizons and grow and develop together some meaningful dialogue about how we take best care of us.
Mhm. Well, we want to let you know again that we are not ending our program early. It's just that you just getting the recorded part, but we have been in the studio since 2 p.m. having this conversation. I believe you were able to hear us via the social media. However, on Facebook, it will end at 3 p.m. We want to make sure we honor our time here, and we continue to do the right thing and be blessed with Believe Radio. Again, you have tuned into the kitchen table, which we bring in community leaders, organizations, and business owners from around the Bay to across the globe to share the beautiful things that they're doing in their community and how we're uplifting our community. Today's theme is Black Woman. You have the birth of humanity in your DNA. And we were highlighting African American women that have trailblazed and making a difference, and even the mama that's out there right now that has her children that she's working with and grinding and in the home and by yourself. We want to tell you, keep up the excellent work because we love you and we thank God for you. Go ahead, Mr. Pearson.
I want to dedicate the show to the mothers of Ukraine.
Mm.
And if you really want to understand trauma and the effect on a individual, watch that entire scenario. Watch the women, watch the men. It is a consistent discussion around how trauma has affected them and will affect them intergenerationally. This is not their first go around with this. Russia's always tried to make them a part of Russia, so they've always had to been fighting. So it kind of blew me away. This woman in her late 80s was talking about, she had to fight when she was in her young woman, and she's having to fight now, but she was going to fight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Strong.
Oh, definitely.
Resilient.
Definitely. Yeah.
As you say.
Going through straight trauma.
Going through straight trauma.
Yeah.
Again, you have tuned into Believe Radio, which is a 24-hour inspirational and gospel music station. You have tuned into the Eyes of the Conscious Soul with your Sister B. Mello, and my co-host, Mr. George Pearson, founder and producer of Education is the Best Medicine. You have tuned in to the kitchen table, where we bring in community voices from around the Bay Area to across the globe to share the important work that they're doing in their actual community. Again, we want to say thank you for tuning in, and God bless you.
Goodbye. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.